Yo, what's going on? Facebuster Wrestling Podcast back again. Smackdown and Raw, this week in particular, seemed a bit slow. And that's not a complaint because I think it's by design. And that is just because of what is impending. That being the WWE draft starting next week on Smackdown, April 28th. The draft is when we essentially see the WWE Universe somewhat reset. So WWE, by design, I believe, is standing pat on a lot of storyline development. The thing, the Bloodline stuff, the Sammy and Kevin Owens stuff, the longer term storylines that have been going on for a while now, can keep those stories can keep being told. There's no issue with that. I think they know that the draft is not going to have a major impact on those storylines. They are very long term. They are going to live on despite whatever results from the draft. And they won't have to make any major adjustments just based on where anybody lands. As far as newer storylines or absolutely fresh and completely new storylines, as far as the main shows go, I think they're just intentionally stalemating a bit because they know that the real time to start developing new storylines and fresh programs is after the draft. You want to see where the pieces fall, where everybody is at. That's really what the draft is mostly for, right? To create fresh new storylines, new rivalries, new matchups, and all of that stuff. So the reason why SmackDown and Raw were a little slow this week is because it's just sort of reinforcing what's going on already. It's reinforcing what's going to be going on for a while anyway, despite the draft. And they can add a few things here and there, like this. On SmackDown, we see Xavier Woods challenging for the IC title. That's a very short-term thing that they can throw into the show that's not going to have really much. Something like that can be told for a month. For a week, at least, we kind of get a slower roll. There's not as much interesting new stuff being thrown at us, which is fine because you can guarantee in a week, once the draft starts, and especially after the draft ends, we're going to see a lot of new stuff start to come out. So I'm going to keep it short as far as the main shows go. SmackDown, like I mentioned, Xavier Woods, he beat LA Knight. There's one other thing out of that match that might have some draft implications. LA Knight, who had all this steam behind him going into WrestleMania, whether or not he was losing or not, he had momentum. He was moving up the card, and he seemed to be more and more prominent each week and get more TV time. Since WrestleMania, when we all hoped and expected LA Knight was going to be on, after he missed WrestleMania, consequently he began, or I guess he continued his losing streak post-WrestleMania. And it really feels post-WrestleMania, at least to me, that losing streak is becoming more and more of an issue. It wasn't so much an issue before WrestleMania because we all thought, well, he can sort of rectify this by appearing at WrestleMania and having a somewhat memorable spot or something that maybe launches him into a better position post-WrestleMania. But LA Knight wasn't even given a spot at WrestleMania. So this losing streak now seems a little bit more negative as far as I'm concerned. So I think LA Knight losing to Xavier Woods, as a result, sort of being pushed into challenging Gunther for the IC title, gives LA Knight reason to expect something big from the draft. I think LA Knight depends on the draft at this point. That is a part of the story going forward for LA Knight, is that he's sort of hoping for a change, and wherever he moves to, if he moves, is going to offer him greener pasture, a change of scenery that can perhaps elevate him or help him elevate into the spot that we all know that he deserves at this point. LA Knight, I wouldn't be surprised to see him go into Raw. I don't know if NXT is involved in this draft at all. We still haven't gotten any more details from anybody regarding the uh, the nuances of this draft and how it's going to change the game and what have you. But I wouldn't mind seeing LA Knight back on NXT maybe for a short spell. Maybe he takes on a guy like Wesley for the North American Championship. That'd be a good program. Uh, but if anybody is looking forward to the draft and a change of scenery, it's got to be LA Knight at this point. The losing streak pre-WrestleMania, not a big deal. The losing streak post-WrestleMania is seeming a bit concerning. Another thing that I notice about SmackDown is Green and DeVille, that is Chelsea Green and Sonya Deville, they're being set up to be a legit team. And it makes sense, and I like that. The reason they are being set up to be a legit team in my eyes is that they have similar gimmicks. As we've spoke on this before, they have that Karen thing going for them. They're always complaining. They're always asking for Adam Pearce. I need to speak to the manager. You get it. You know what I'm talking about. That's a bit of a legit reason to have somebody be a team. They share commonalities as far as personality goes. And I think that's something that the WWE, especially the main rosters, have lacked lately. On the women's tag team side of things, teams that make sense and should be together. You have so many of these thrown together, random, nonsensical teams. You're seeing one of them as champions right now. Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez are not really an actual team. They were randomly tossed together, or they randomly decided to team up, and they ended up winning the belts off Becky and Trish/Lita. It still doesn't make sense to me. Like I said before, I get why they're putting the belts on them, but in the long run, why are they a team? There's no story behind it. It doesn't make any sense. At least with a team like Green and DeVille, them coming together makes a little bit of sense. Even in NXT, on the women's tag team side, they desperately need more teams that make sense. So I hope to see Green and DeVille actually take on Liv Morgan, Raquel Rodriguez, and take the belts from them. I don't expect that to happen at Backlash, but maybe post-Backlash. It's kind of like Isla Dawn and Alba Fire in NXT. They came together, formed a team that makes sense. They mesh well together. There's chemistry there. There's a story there. And they look great as champions. If Green and DeVille continue to mesh well together and create chemistry and continue to Karen it up together, it's going to make sense, and it's going to give them storyline momentum as an actual team. And they, sooner rather than later, will be deserving of championship status. So, also on SmackDown, Shinsuke Nakamura returned. I like Shinsuke, but it looks like more of the same. I hope they're setting him up for something, and it looks like they are, as there was a post-match backstage video package, Karrion Kross and Scarlett drawing the tarot card of Shinsuke, which that's an interesting matchup. That is something I would like to see. But in his return, he defeats Madcap Moss rather easily. It looks like Madcap Moss is turning heel, or is in the process of turning heel, with the provocation of Emma sort of inspiring him to say screw the fans. So there's Madcap's a guy who kind of needs a bit of a refresher. He just needs anything, really, at this point. His character is really just intense, big guy. That's only going to get you so far these days. He needs more to his personality, he needs more to his story, so hopefully Emma and a heel turn can spice things up for him. We saw Solo beat Riddle in the main event. More kind of like what I mentioned earlier. It's more of the same with the Bloodline versus Riddle and Owens and Zayn and the whole, that whole thing. I like what they're doing with Raw and Riddle. They're kind of having him go against the grain of what he was before. What he was before he was quote-unquote injured, quote-unquote taken out by the Bloodline, or IRL went to fucking rehab, in that he was kind of a doofus, cornball, always joking around. And on Raw, we saw him sort of try to make a joke, but also he was like, "No, I'm joking about the joke. I'm going to kick somebody's ass tonight." So they're allowing Riddle to be a little bit more serious while still maintaining his dude bro personality. So yeah, I mean, not a whole lot on SmackDown to really go crazy over. There were only 4 matches on SmackDown and a couple promos. You know, not a lot to talk about there. Raw was a little bit more packed. Again, suffering from the same pre-draft doldrums as SmackDown. We see Judgment Day and Bloodline sign a deal or broker a deal in which they're going to help out each other, sort of the enemy of my enemy is my friend scenario going on. Just doing some math. I don't know if this is setting anything up in the future match-wise. If we look at these impromptu teams, right, on the heel side, we have Judgment Day and Bloodline. And on the face side, we have Ray, the LWO, and Owen, Zayn, and Riddle. So the numbers are matching up across the board. I don't know if this is leading to anything. We could have a potential 7-on-7. We could have a potential 8-on-8 intergender. And we can have a potential 9-on-9 intergender / friends and representatives. Let me explain. So on the heel side, Priest, Balor, Dom, Roman, Jay, Jimmy, and Solo. That's 7. On the face side, Ray, Santos, Wild, Cruz, Owens, Zayn, and Riddle. That's 7. On the heel side, you have Rhea. On the face side, you have Zelina. That makes it 8 on each side. On the heel side, you have Paul Heyman. On the face side, you have Bad Bunny. That's 9-on-9, everyone included. So the math checks out if they ever want to go straight across the board and have a match with all of these teams together, which would be fucking nuts. That's a lot of people, even 7-on-7. That's fucking crazy. But we've seen crazier, right? Or just as crazy. And this is this, I think as far as Backlash, we're probably going to get Priest and Dom versus Ray and Bad Bunny, right? That's the heavily rumored match. And we're going to get, as we know, Owen, Zayn, Riddle versus Jay, Jimmy, and Solo. But if somewhere along the line they want to do a massive fucking brawl with these two teams, they have the numbers match up. It's just something I noticed. I don't know if they're doing anything with it. But it could be interesting. Maybe this is something long-term. Maybe Judgment Day becomes more involved. Maybe Ray and LWO becomes more involved in the storyline. Who knows? But we do know that in a long-term angle, like the Bloodline shit that's going on, they like to spice it up. They like to add things in. And this may or may not be a temporary alliance for Backlash, but it could be something that they could revisit down the road. It's certainly something that adds layers to the story that they could look back to at some point in the future, as that's something that Triple H has done recently very well as far as continuity goes. So adding more characters, adding more layers to the story, never a bad thing. It's just maybe a little crowded if they all got together at once, but we're yet to see what actually happens in regards to that. So we think we're getting a Cody Rhodes and Brock Lesnar confrontation. We do not. Cody Rhodes comes out, calls out Lesnar. Lesnar comes out in his Undertaker cosplay. He sort of teases Cody from the entrance ramp, and 20 security guards proceed to Truman Burbank the shit out of Cody Rhodes, blocking him at every path, and Cody beats down about 20 security guards, and Brock Lesnar laughs like a cartoon villain and strolls to the back before any blows are exchanged. Just adding intensity to the rivalry, adding build up. Rollins and The Miz have a great match. Rollins seems a bit aimless at this point, as is The Miz. They both seem like they're without direction. This could be a LA Knight kind of thing, like I mentioned earlier, where they're both sort of waiting on a change of scenery to spice things up for them. But right now, Rollins and Miz are just two good superstars without any real depth. They're just sort of, I don't know, is Logan Paul, I know he signed a new contract. Are we going to see Rollins and Logan match up again? Is The Miz going to get involved like he has been? Is The Miz going to do anything besides have random matches and Miz TVs every once in a while? Who knows? Maybe a move to Smackdown to the both of them could do him well. But as of right now, Rollins and Miz just seemed like a bit of a filler, but it was a great filler nonetheless. On to better things. Theory versus Lashley. Bronson Reed comes out and interrupts the match, causing a disqualification. And before I go on about that, I do think I messed up last week. I believe I incorrectly gave Lashley the victory over Bronson Reed last week. That was incorrect. It was a double count out. I could be wrong, but I think I mentioned that Lashley one. That was stupid. I fucked up. So erase that from your memory. It was a double count out. But this week on Raw, Bronson comes out and proceeds to destroy Lashley, continuing to make Bronson Reed look like a monster. This was fantastic. I loved it. I'm glad to see Bronson being elevated, especially with a rival such as Lashley. It's making him look more authentic. I'm not sure about the Mr. Nice Guy thing. It kind of reminds me too much of Half-Baked, but it could work. I like that it's sort of sarcastic and ironic, calling a big mean monster Mr. Nice Guy. I get it. We'll see if it sticks, but he doesn't even need that. He's just a big badass dude, and he's starting to look it more and more each week, especially the more they elevate him like this. So this was good to see. We saw Trish Stratus's first heel promo. She actually told a lot of truths, which seems to be a oddly heel thing to do for anyone these days. No, the truth hurts, and people that tell the truth are treated like shit most of the time in modern times. So this was just funny to me. Trish comes out spilling facts. People are booing, but no Becky Lynch on this episode, so Trish got to say what she had to say without interruption. And I guess we're building to Trish versus Becky. I guess I was completely wrong in thinking Trish was just going to be around for WrestleMania. Apparently she's in it for a much longer term, which I'm happy about. I'm glad I was wrong. I love Trish, and I still don't get the heel turn. I get it, but I just don't like it because it's Trish Stratus, man. Like, I will always cheer for Trish, and there's nothing you can do to change that. So suck it. So Matt Riddle, as I mentioned, appears to be taking a more serious turn. He still comes out and does the flip-flop, random colorful animals still magically explode from the ring when he does his entrance. I think it was rhinos or some shit this week. That's fine, but backstage at least he's got a bit more of a serious demeanor, at least lately when he's dealing with Owens and Zayn. He tried telling the toe bro joke, and Kevin Owens was like, "See, Sammy, this fucking guy is ridiculous." And Matt Riddle was like, "No, dude, bro, it's a joke. I just want to kick this guy's ass because he put me on the shelf for 4 months." Or was that cocaine? Storyline, it was Solo. IRL, it was illegal drugs. Nonetheless, Riddle showing a more serious side is a good thing. As I mentioned, the guy needs a little bit more of an edge to him. As I mentioned before, a couple weeks ago, I wanted to see Matt Riddle return at WrestleMania and interrupt the Logan Paul-Seth Rollins match and attack Seth Rollins and turn heel. I wanted heel Matt Riddle. And it made sense to me because in the time that Matt's been away, Seth Rollins has become a face. And I wanted Matt Riddle to use that storyline-wise and say, you people cheer this guy now? This guy was shitting on me and my family life and viciously attacking me and my family situation on television, and you guys are cheering for this guy now? Are you fucking kidding me? I thought that would have been a good story to tell, and it would have been a way to sort of, it's the Braun Breaker thing where you need to see a different side of a person after so long. I would like to see a different side of Matt Riddle, but either way, it looks like at least a little bit of it is shining through. He's got a little bit more edge to him, a tiny bit more edge to him, and we'll see if it continues. Maybe by the time Randy gets back, he'll be like Randy Orton Jr. and he'll just be an intense, weird psychopath who talks to voices in his head and takes out like retired veterans and shit. I don't know, but it's good to see Riddle with a more serious tone to his character palette. As far as Raw, nothing really else of importance to talk about. Solo Sikoa beat Rey Mysterio to the delight of Dominic Mysterio. Bianca Belair beat Dakota Kai, which could be setting up Io Sky being the strong woman of Damage Control. If Io Sky can either beat or at least take Bianca Belair to her limits in their championship match, perhaps that will establish Io as the new alpha female in Damage Control and create some more dissension there, further hopefully shattering Damage Control to pieces. We got Sonya Deville and Chelsea Green beating Michin and Candice LeRae, who are just absolutely floundering as of late. That being Michin and Candice LeRae, I don't know what's going on with them. A few months ago, this would have seemed like a formidable team. Now they're jobbing to the Karens, which good for the Karens. Good for the I forget if it was Kevin Patrick or Corey Graves. Somebody gave him a random impromptu name. I think it was like the Complaint Department or the Complaint Coalition or something tacky, but something that fit. I actually liked it when I heard it. I'm surprised I forgot what it was, but this again lends to the idea that it appears they're pushing these two as a legitimate team, and I think that's a positive thing. It's bad for Michin and Candice LeRae, who actually have reason to be considered a legitimate team as well, considering they do have history together as far as like back in NXT. But right now, they're playing the jobbers for Chelsea Green and Sonya Deville, which is odd to say, but it makes sense given the story that has been told so far. Sonya Deville and Chelsea Green are actually doing a pretty good job with this the Karen thing. So good on them. Michin, Mia Yim, and Candice LeRae have got to figure something out. Whatever happened to Nikki Cross kind of stalking Candice LeRae? That sort of just disappeared. Whatever happened to Michin with the Good Brothers and AJ Styles? I guess that came to an end because AJ is out of action. Or the Good Brothers are just floating around catering somewhere. So Michin, Candice LeRae, maybe another two in the LA Night Boat, looking for a change of scenery, something fresh for those two. And then, of course, Sami Zayn, KO, and Matt Riddle beat the Bloodline. Not much going on Raw, just like SmackDown. Everything's kind of stagnant because the draft is coming up. They got to kind of just hold things together until everything changes in a little over a week. Be patient. We got a slow week, but things are about to pick up once the entire universe is blown up and shuttered about, and everything is flipped and turned on its head, and we have a new SmackDown roster and a new Raw roster. I imagine this draft might also take care of the lack of NXT call-ups that we usually get on the post-Raw, or the post-WrestleMania Raw, which we got 0 of this year. Perhaps the draft takes care of some of the the injury returns and stuff like that we usually get on the post WrestleMania Raw. But NXT a little bit different than the main roster shows this week. NXT this episode seemed to be moving full steam ahead. This was a fast-paced show, and they are setting up for Spring Breakin next week. Which, by the way, just a side note from me, I appreciate when they do things like this, but I don't understand the random NXT episodes that are like specials. Like, why not make Spring Breakin a weekend premium live event thing? Things like this and New Year's Evil and the Bash at the Beach stuff that they do. It's always just a slightly more stacked episode of NXT. A slightly enhanced standard NXT episode. It's always been a little strange to me. Again, I'm not complaining. I appreciate the effort that goes into making an episode seem more special. I get that end of it. I just don't it just seems to I just don't get it sometimes. But yeah, they continue setting up for Spring Breakin next week. We saw Gallus retain against the Creed brothers and the Dyad, who apparently are still with NXT. Whatever those rumors about them requesting their release, whether they were granted or not, whatever happened there, it appears to be done and over with. It looks like they are here to stay. They appear to be teasing something with Ivy Nile and Ava. Maybe Ivy Nile is the next superstar that they try to kidnap, like they did to Thea Hale a month or so ago. Dijak and Apollo Crews confront each other in the parking lot. Dijak pushes a cameraman, and Apollo Crews is like, "What the fuck? Why are you doing this?" And Dijak is like, "Fuck you, because and let's fight about it. Fuck you." So they're gonna do that later, and pretty random, yes. Noam Dar in his return match versus Miles Bourne, who NXT appears to be high on because they keep featuring him in these sort of random debut matches, and they gave him a custom nameplate, you guys. If you watch the intro to this match, Noam Dar comes out, and they show Miles Bourne already in the ring, no entrance music, but they had like a cool little nameplate for him when they showed who he was. So obviously they like this guy. They're giving him more work on TV. He's getting the jobber treatment right now, but apparently they've made an effort for him. So I would expect him to start getting some vignettes in the next month or so and actually maybe become a regular TV character. But Noam Dar goes on to win, and it's nice to see Dar back. I always like Dar in NXT UK, and I think he's a great character. And I think he's going to add some next level greasy heel shit to NXT, which I love. Duke Hudson confronts Braun Breaker, and for a second, I thought they were giving Duke Hudson some balls, but it turns out he is feeding Andre Chase to Braun Breaker. I started to believe that Duke Hudson was calling out Braun Breaker to face him at Spring Breakin', but he casually throws in Andre Chase as the person who will actually be facing Braun Breaker. Before this, what led up to this was seemingly Odyssey Jones coming out for a match, but before anything could start, Braun Breaker speared his giant ass into the next millennium. Great job by both of these two. The spear looked great. Odyssey Jones sold it very well. It looked like his soul left his body. And Braun Breaker is good at the fucking spear. What can I say? But I continue to appreciate Braun's heel work. He is really a good bad guy. And I like him better as a heel than I ever liked him as a face. I liked him as a face, but I like him better as a heel more than I ever liked him as a good person. He is playing the role well. I think he's better on the mic as a heel, I think it's a more natural character for him, actually, or at least it seems to be. He's better at talking shit than being cheesy and pandering to the crowd. It's working so far. And I'm excited to see who he is in the ring as a heel, as opposed to a babyface. I like that he's wearing just the black wife beater now with the black pants. That's a total heel move. Old school heel move. I wonder if he's gotten rid of the tie-dye and the old school Steiner gear. But I'm excited to see him at Spring Breakin. I want to see how he moves, how his moveset is affected by his new persona. Because that is something that is, that's got to change up a little bit. That always changes with a turn. It's supposed to change with a turn. Either you get a little more intense as a heel, or you're a little bit more timid and respectful as a face. So I want to see intense, I don't give a shit if I hurt you, Braun Breaker. Roxanne Perez comes out to the ring. Listen, she continues to be a little bit better on the mic. There's not as much nervous giggling as when she first got here. I swear to God, every sentence, I couldn't stand it. I'm so glad she stopped doing that. Roxanne took on Zoe Stark. Unfortunately, Roxanne Perez won this match. I have to admit, the Pop Rocks looks a little better from the second rope, but still looks weak. Very, very weak. Better from the middle rope, still looks weak. Proceeding this match, Indy Hartwell comes out to congratulate Roxanne Perez. And as she had said before, as she had promised previously, she offers up an opportunity at the NXT Women's Championship at Spring Breakin to Roxanne Perez. Roxanne Perez, fake heavy breathing as she is wont to do, accepts, and out comes, thank you God, Tiffany Stratton, who I'm a little disappointed. I wanted somebody to call out Indy Hartwell for not winning on her own at Stand and Deliver. Again, it was a cheap victory. As wholesome as a story as it might have been, with Dexter Lumis helping her, she needed assistance from the outside to win that match and to win the title. Tiffany Stratton almost got there tonight. She mentioned Indy Hartwell barely climbing the ladder to win the championship. She was almost there. She was so close. Tiffany, why? Why couldn't you just bring up Dexter Lumis? Call it cheap. Call her a cheater. That was a shit heel move that Indy pulled off to win the title. Regardless, again, of how lovely of a story that it was, how heartfelt and romantic it was for Dexter to help her like that. It was still cheap. Nobody has called her out for it yet. Stratton came close tonight, saying she was barely able to climb the ladder. God damn it, she didn't climb the ladder at all. What do you mean barely? Dexter climbed the ladder with Indy on his shoulders. She didn't climb one. Ugh. Anyway, the positive of this is Stratton gets involved and imposes herself and basically forces her way into this match by calling out Indy Hartwell, calling Indy and Roxanne very beatable. And Indy's like, well, I'll show you I'm beatable by beating the both of you. You're in too. So I just love to see Stratton getting an opportunity for the championship in a match outside of the ladder match. Again, I love Tiffany Stratton. I want her to win. I want her to be champion. I don't think she's going to win this match, but I'm just glad to see her getting more opportunities. But God, man, I can't believe nobody has called out Indy Hartwell for her cheap victory at Stand and Deliver. We get Gigi Dolan and Cora Jade. This one was a little predictable. I think we all expected JC Jane to come out and fuck this up somehow, which she did. And Jade goes to grab a mic and start roasting motherfuckers again. But Lyra Valkyria comes out instead, shrouded by smoke like a creepy, mysterious bird woman, and calls out Cora Jade challenging her to a match at Spring Breakin, and so we will be getting that next week. And I hope Lyra wins, because like Stratton, I really love Lyra, and I think she's better than Cora Jade. Sorry. Okay, I mentioned last week that I'm not a big fan of the country bumpkin feud thing going on with Briggs and Jensen, Fallon Henley, and Kiana James. Wasn't a big fan. After this week, I'm a fan. I like it because of the changes that were made. Brooks Jensen is now like a sort of cleaned up corporate simp for Kiana James, and he pulls it off really well. Dude, whatever they did to Brooks this week, and whatever they told him, how to act, whatever, he did it really well, man. And he added a whole new layer to his character. A character that I thought was extremely one-dimensional and naive, young country dude who has never kissed a girl or whatever he was supposed to be. This, coupled with, dude, credit to Josh Briggs as well. Another previously one-dimensional country guy who I didn't have much invested in emotionally. But this dude was like nearly in tears talking to Brooks, the new corporate Brooks. Like, dude, you could see his eyes glassing over. Superb acting from both of these guys this week. This added a whole new layer to this story, and I actually really like it now. We're going to get Brooks and Kiana versus Josh Briggs and Fallon Henley next week at Spring Breakin for a intergender match. And if you had told me this was happening 2 weeks ago, I wouldn't have cared. Like, I would have been like, oh, they're fighting each other. That's kind of cool and weird, but also I don't care. With this new layer on Brooks and also kind of on Josh Briggs, I dig it, man. I'm excited to see that. I want to see more of corporate Brooks. I like this guy. They had 2 video segments tonight that I thought they all did really well, and I got to hand it to everybody in this entire angle. They have elevated it, and I legitimately enjoy it now. I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes. Whereas last week, I was like, this sucks. Who cares? So kudos to them. Glad to see it, and we'll see how that match goes. I'm looking forward to it. We had Dijak and Apollo Crews in a pretty decent match. Dijak ended up winning this. Apollo Crews might be a draft guy, or he might just stay on NXT and be a veteran jobber who kind of gets guys over. I don't know, but Apollo Crews, man, constantly built up only to be torn down. It's the story of Apollo Crews. What can I say? But Dijak goes to further damage Apollo Crews post-match, but Ilya Dragunov comes out and kicks the shit out of him. So obviously, at some point, we're going to get that match. And we get Wesley versus Charlie Dempsey in a pretty good match. Charlie Dempsey looked really good. Wesley, of course, looks good, as always. Drew Gulak tried to get involved. I'm excited for Charlie Dempsey because, in a little less than a year now, William Regal is going to be by his side. You know that, right? But Dempsey continues to improve. We all knew Wesley was going to win this match, but it's good to see Dempsey being elevated, getting a title shot. This was a good one. Of course, Wesley won. But after the match, Dempsey and Gulak attacked Lee, and part of me was thinking we might see an old friend in Nash Carter come out. That's just maybe wishful thinking at this point, but I still feel like WWE is going to, at some point, wisen up and bring him back. I think he got a bad rap, and I really wanted to see Nash Carter come out and save Wesley, but I'm holding out hope for that at some point. Then we go on to the Grayson Waller effect. Not a whole lot to talk about here. 2 guys that are good at talking shit to each other. They both go back and forth, and they just kind of set up their match for next week. Some good one-liners from both of them. And that was it. Nothing more. So really kind of a high-octane NXT as opposed to SmackDown and Raw, which were kind of on the slow burn. NXT came out swinging, fast-paced, really, the whole night. I wonder how affected they will be by the draft. I wonder how involved they will be in the draft. But real quick, let's go over the Spring Breakin card, what we have so far, and make a couple predictions, shall we? So first we have Braun Breaker versus Andre Chase. This is Braun's first showcase as a heel. There's what is there to predict? Braun's gonna beat the absolute shit out of Andre Chase. Duke Hudson may or may not get involved. They've been kind of playing him as a chicken shit kind of guy lately. Obviously, he took his trophy and ran for the hills last week when Braun attacked Andre Chase and ripped up their flag and all that. So, Braun Breaker beating Andre Chase handily with the help of no one, except maybe, I don't know, maybe Tyler Bate comes out, maybe Thea Hale tries to get involved, who knows, but Braun over Chase. We have Cora Jade versus Lyra Valkyria. I want Lyra to win this. And you know what? I'm going to call for her to win this one too. I got Lyra beating Cora Jade. I think they're trying to, especially after the shit that she talked on just about everyone last week, I think maybe they're trying to play a little bit of humbling upon Cora Jade. And Lyra's coming out, she's been talking to Jade like she's trying to teach her a bit of a lesson. So I want Lyra to win. I think Lyra will win, but I can also see Cora Jade getting herself disqualified if she sees herself losing and takes out her kendo stick or whatever she likes to use and gets disqualified that way. But I'm gonna pick Lyra to win outright. We got Stax and Tony D versus Pretty Deadly in a trunk match. Apparently, you win once you stuff your opponents in the trunk of a car, is what I'm led to believe. This is an absolute Stax and Tony D kind of match. I can't see them losing their own match, right? It'd be like the Undertaker losing his first casket match. Let's be real. Tony and Stax got to stuff Pretty Deadly in the trunk. Tony and Stax need a win. I think they're continuing to push these guys as future full-on faces sooner rather than later. I think this will play a big part in it. Stax and Tony D over Pretty Deadly. We get Brooks Jensen and Corporate Brooks Jensen and Kiana James versus Josh Briggs and Fallon Henley in an intergender tag match. This one I could see going either way, and there's got to be some amount of storyline fuckery in this. Is Brooks Jensen going to remain corporate Brooks long term, or is this a temporary glitch in the country bumpkin matrix? I could see this being like a full-on Brooks Jensen sees that he loves Josh and Fallon as family. Tonight he called them, he referred them to them as not being family. So maybe the emotions of fighting each other brings him back. This is a tough one to call on the spot. But in my book, as far as I'm concerned, Corporate Brooks has all the momentum after tonight because he showed he showed his chops as far as character layers go. I like Corporate Brooks. I think he's a greasy cheese ball, and I like the way that he plays it. I want Brooks and Kiana James to take this, but at the same time, I can also see him going back to Briggs and Henley and ultimately kicking Kiana James to the curb. I don't want that to happen. I want more Corporate Brooks. So I'm officially taking Corporate Brooks Jensen and Kiana James to win this one. Indy Hartwell, Roxanne Perez, and Tiffany Stratton in a triple threat for the NXT Women's Championship. I think Indy takes this. I think she's not a long-term champion, but I also don't think she's that short-term of a champion. I think she needs a decisive victory over two competitive, legitimate NXT superstars to sort of lend her some more legitimacy, especially since she still got that title in a cheap way God damn it. But I don't want Roxanne Perez to win because I kind of don't like her. I want Tiffany Stratton as NXT Women's Champion. I don't think that happens yet, and I don't think that happens at Spring Breakin. I think that's something for a more dedicated premium live event, an actual premium live event. Tiffany Stratton, her day is coming. I don't think this is it. I think Indy Hartwell takes this. Carmelo Hayes versus Grayson Waller. I think this will be a good match, but I think this is easily predictable. Carmelo Hayes, obviously. You really think Carmelo, you think him is going to lose to Grayson Waller already? No, not a chance. Something weird has got to happen here. There's going to be some element of fuckery. I don't know if Grayson gets disqualified somehow, but I just don't see this being 100% clean. It's just too straightforward. Carmelo is too much of a favorite. There's got to be something else. But I think Carmelo retains, whether it's clean or by some sort of outside shit job, we'll see. But Carmelo over Waller for this one. So to sum it up, I got Braun, I got Lyra, I got Stax and Tony D, I got Corporate Brooks and Kiana James, I have Indy Hartwell and Carmelo Hayes. That is Spring Breakin' so far. So coming up, April 28th, Smackdown, 2023 WWE Draft begins. Before that, in the coming days, maybe early next week, perhaps around this time, I'll dish out a draft prediction show. I don't intend to draft the entire rosters. I think I'm just going to mention the notable things that I expect or predict to happen. Potential storylines that may develop as a result. Maybe some surprise predictions, some return predictions, some call-up predictions as far as the draft goes. But again, I don't think this is going to be an ordinary draft. I don't think this is going to be the same old that we've seen before. Triple H alluded to it. This is going to change the game, and something unusual has got to be taking place. This is going to be a unique draft in one form or another. We don't know how yet, but I will make my predictions, maybe not on the next show, maybe not on the recap show that I've been doing, but on a separate show. So look forward to that coming in the near future, sometime next week. In the meantime, thank you all for listening. If you like the show, please do subscribe. Hit the stupid like button. If you have anything to say, there's a comment section that you can say whatever the hell you want. If you have any predictions, maybe for the draft, if you have any ideas for storylines coming up, anything in particular, you got something to say, lay it on me. That's it for now. I will see you next time as we recap more and we get into WWE draft predictions. Thank you. See you then.